it's all the pleasure's all on the book side of the table.
Exactly. It takes what it wants. It uses and abuses.
It does use and abuse. You know what doesn't use and abuse?
What's that, Kevin?
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to PixelLit. My name is Kevin. With me, as always, is Phil.
Hello.
And today we're driving through. We're taking a road trip. We're taking a road trip under the water. Back to Rapture. And if I got my dates right, this is the last episode of the year.
The last
maybe?
or the second to last?
I don't know, but either way, Merry Christmas, because it's either coming up or it just passed.
Yep. So everyone's get one last, helping of All I Want for Christmas Is You under your belt, my friends.
Before we put Mariah Carey back into deep freeze,
Please. Where she fucking belongs. We all love that song. We all love that song.
But the chaos she causes in 2 months,
madness. It's absolute madness.
The year is it's untenable.
It's unreasonable. It can't be supported. It cannot be supported for many reasons. It can't be supported.
The globe is warming, goddammit. We
Yeah.
can't support Mariah Carey being unthawed for 2 months of the year.
Do you know how big her mouth can get? The amount of gas she expels hitting the notes that she hits.
It is like a void to some nether realm.
Yeah. The flatulence of all the cows in the Midwest cannot equal the carbon dioxide that she just bleeding through the ozone layer with every "and I" that she puts out there, even though I don't think she sings that part. But God damn it, you get my point.
We do get your point.
Yeah.
So all I want for Christmas is you. And
all I want for Christmas is plasmids. The plasmids. Plasmids.
Can I have a plasmid, please?
Can I have plasmid? We got lots of people who love plasmids in this book. Jesus Christ.
Oh, they love plasmids because we're in chapter 12 and it's 1955 in the misappropriately named Artemis suites, but by the way they're described, it seems like the bunk of a military base.
Yeah. So it's very barracks-esque, and it makes sense.
It looks like a barracks.
It makes sense because it's an apartment that has like 10 families living in it.
Yeah, and it's from the point of view of a man named Sam Lutz. Who is he? Doesn't really matter.
No.
No, he's not a main character. He's
don't
more
get attached.
Don't get attached to anybody in Rapture because by the time the game rolls around, they're all dead.
Pretty much.
So let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sam Lutz. Sam is talking to his wife Mariska, and it's most of this part is just kind of laying the foundation of, God, things really suck, don't they?
Yeah, and it's sad because, last time we had one of the most heart-wrenching chapters ever with a poor, down-on-their-luck couple who were the victims of poverty and plasmids. And we have the same sort of... We have a similar setup here. The difference, though, seems to be that the Lutzes actually seem to love each other.
Yeah. They are lovely people.
Yeah, they seem to be nice people. They're just in a bad situation. Yeah, he basically got down there to work. They made it sound like the most amazing thing in the world. He worked for literally a few days, and then the work was done, and he got laid off.
Yep.
And there's no minimum wage, no nothing, no safety net. So they're literally just living in these slums, and he's just catching work wherever he can. But they've got but you kind of hope the best for them, even though you shouldn't, because, they're optimistic for the most part. He's trying to make his wife feel better. He doesn't lash out, he's sympathetic to how she feels. It's nice. It's really nice.
It's nice. And the scene gets interrupted, stage left, by, what was the name of that cartoon cat?
Felix?
No, the one with the stage left.
Fuck. Yeah, the Hanna-Barbera one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like
exits stage left.
Yeah. It was worth it.
It was worth it.
Stage right
even. Yeah, he would always throw even at the end of his. Is it Snagglepuss?
Snagglepuss.
Yeah.
Yeah, Snagglepuss. That's the one.
Yeah. Speaking of questionable queer representation, Snagglepuss.
Yeah, he's basically Sander Cohen.
Queer coded. Yeah, he's basically Sander Cohen, kind of coded the same way Sander Cohen is. It's that very mid-century, like, this is how gay men acted, type of coding that they throw on there.
There's a pink feline Liberace, which is to say, Liberace.
Yeah. So, just outside the conversation, two men hopped up on plasmid goofballs, basically pick a fight with each other.
Yeah.
And one man, basically they're just talking up a big game, and the one man's wife intervenes.
Yeah.
And the other guy kills both the wife and her husband, and like just melts them with electrobolt. It's their eyes melt out of their skulls.
It's pretty awful.
It's pretty grotesque.
And the one guy had the electricity power, and the other guy has the fire power, and they're just in a standoff. Who's gonna win? Well, the guy who gets distracted by his poor wife isn't. And then, of course, because they had already stuck the knife in, and all that was left was to twist it, thus tearing our tender insides. Two little twin girls come.
The Babcock
twins come out. That's their mother and father, who have just been so horribly destroyed by plasmids. And basically do the whole like poking the dead relative, mother, father? Like, oh God, like Littlefoot in Land Before Time, just like, why won't you get up? You are treated to the whole realm of that.
The whole thing, and the scene ends with two little girls, all alone now, orphans. Two little sisters. Bum, bum, bum.
I understood that reference.
I get that reference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Insert Captain America here.
Exactly.
And then we cut back to Fontaine Futuristics, and there's a problem.
Yes.
Too few sea slugs.
How many times have I said that? We don't have enough goddamn sea slugs.
How many times have you opened your cabinet and said, too few sea slugs?
Where are the sea slugs? They are out. And so they're basically working on a new project where they're using a little girl to create a new base for the plasmids, and so they don't have to use the sea slugs. And Fontaine, very reasonably, I think, says, why don't we start breeding the sea slugs? And apparently that'll take years to set up. And I'm not convinced about that one. Unless you know something I don't about these sea slugs' metabolism.
I mean, don't you just throw slugs into a thing and eventually more slugs come out?
That's kind of how it works. You throw them in a jar, you shake the jar, and then you got more slugs. It's as simple as that. Metabolism, Jesus. Reproduction is what I meant to say. But but it doesn't matter. Who cares? They are basically they found out that it's better for that little girls can handle the plasmids better than little boys.
It can't be little boys. It can't be adults. Yeah. It has to be little girls. Something about little girls. Oh, little girls.
They get bigger every day. So we've got a whole thing about them using these little girls to as a new basis for carrying the plasmids. They even bring up the Babcock twins. They'll be that was no coincidence that they used them for that one. And you're just about to think to yourself, is this too horrific to actually work in this world? Just when Reggie, one of Fontaine's guys, rushes in and he's been shot.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, great timing to keep you from thinking too hard about what the fuck is going on. But he basically he's been shot. He doesn't know who shot him or why. He's assuming it's some plasmid addict or something like that. But people are just out there getting shot. He says there have been turrets set up everywhere, which is another reference to the game.
Yep.
To help protect property, which they don't say that outright, but let's face it, that's what those turrets are there to do.
That's all it's there for.
And so it's basically just an introduction to this new violent world where, there's crime out there all over the place, and the only response to it that Ryan has come up with is to put more weaponry out there.
More automated machine guns out there.
Yeah,
it's basically they're literally trying to fight fire with fire is the idea of Andrew Ryan.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically that scene. This is where Fontaine is basically like, well, how about we start an orphanage? And
yes.
Because the orphanage has been alluded to a few scenes earlier, where it's like, well, Andrew Ryan wouldn't start one unless it was for profit,
right?
Because there's a need for one, because a lot of workers have been killed and left their kids there parentless.
And we find out the way that someone here can actually make a level of profit off of an orphanage, and that is by being able to have this easy supply of little girls to turn into little sisters to be a base for these plasmids. So he gets to look like he is doing good work for the community while just furthering his own gains.
Yeah. And then we come back to Andrew Ryan, and he is talking to Mr. Stanley Poole.
Yes.
And he's asking about this Topside character.
Johnny Topside.
Johnny Topside.
Which is my porn name. Coincidentally enough. Back in the day, I was known as Johnny Topside.
Johnny Topside.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
Yeah. Google me, coward. Or are you afraid of what you might find?
So this is the thing about Johnny Topside, is that it kind of comes up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is it a reference to like Atlas or the stuff Fontaine is doing?
I don't know.
Because I mean, I've read through the rest of this section, and I don't remember seeing Johnny Topside being mentioned again.
It is a rant. I don't know. And if you guys are listening and you know if this is a reference, please let us know. I wasn't sure either. The best guess I could make is it's this legend of, clearly what they say is it's this legend of some guy he's become a legend in a way, where he's supposedly from the outer world and he's infiltrated the place
kind of
somehow.
Smuggled himself into Rapture.
Right.
And he's a G-man or something like that.
Exactly. And it just feeds Ryan's paranoia. And it's just another thing to feed Ryan's paranoia, and it kind of leads to him finally just crossing the line officially and basically ordering that he wants Lamb disappeared, essentially.
Yeah, send her into Persephone, which is they haven't really talked about what Persephone is quite.
It's a penal colony for all intents and purposes. Yeah,
Persephone is basically the place they put people. And they say, just take her kid, give it to a woman named Grace Holloway to just look after, and that'll be that. That ties up that loose end in Ryan's mind,
right? And so I'm not sure if this is meant to reference something larger or if it's just another thing.
Yeah. So Lamb is big in Bioshock 2.
Okay.
She is. I haven't played all of Bioshock 2. I've played maybe like an hour and a half or something. But Lamb is positioned as basically the antagonist of Bioshock 2. And there's references. So in the book, they talk about the debates in Bioshock 2, towards the beginning, you find audio logs of debates between Ryan and Lamb out in public, stuff like that. So since this book seems to try to tie all three games together at times, and mostly Bioshock 1 and 2.
Yeah, this came out before Infinite, I believe.
Yeah.
But not so early that they couldn't have,
right.
And because they do mention Comstock and stuff, which is an Infinite reference.
Right. So I think the what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, if we don't necessarily pick up on it, my go-to is, I guess it might be in Bioshock 2.
Maybe
is because I know Lamb and her daughter figure into Bioshock 2 to the extent of which I don't quite know / remember, because I haven't beaten the game yet. So
right.
But yeah, I have a figure. It's foreshadowing to something that happens later.
Sure. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Which I would say, and I'll stop here to mention, that's probably the only weakness that one of the only gripes I have with the book is that some of it feels like, whereas Far Cry Absolution, for example, and even Halo Fall of Reach, you didn't need to have played anything of those games in order to grasp it. And I feel like some of the scenes in this book are super well written, but then they also have the,
and I was just going to say essentially the same thing. I can deal with the occasional wink towards the audience. But I will say it feels like they get a lot of references out in a very short amount of time here.
Sure.
And it's right here in this area that we're reading. There's a whole cluster of them all in a row that felt a little rushed to me. But it's still, quality writing, but I think that is absolutely a weakness that we've run into.
And
here.
it still might come through and pay off in part 3. But I'm just saying, as of right now, it just feels like more of a wink and a nod rather than naturally in the line of the story.
I totally agree. Yeah.
So we finally get our first introduction to spider splicers, which are my second least favorite enemy in Bioshock.
Oh, they're so effective.
They are so effective because they're up on the ceiling, man.
Yeah.
And number one, the one I hate the most is the Houdini splicers,
which we're also going to run into.
Which we're also going to. The book is also going to talk about relatively soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, the spider slicers. Bill, our dear friend Bill, is finding out about spider slicers as we are in this book. There are a couple of them literally crawling on the outside of a tram, threatening the people inside of them.
They're just like poking their head down through the ceiling of the tram.
Yeah, trying to get in. And the tram is moving away. Like they're there and it's like Bill and I forget who's with him, but they're just like literally watching this tram with these horrible spider splicers on it move away. They're not there to help. They're just observing. And as the tram gets further and further away, you hear a gunshot from inside of the tram, and like basically as it disappears in the darkness, all fucking hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And they just kind of move on. They're like, well, that sucks.
Meanwhile, this is all happening. Greavy and Bill are having a discussion about whether charity is communist or not.
Yeah, because Ryan's open to charity.
He's open to House for the Poor.
Yeah, and so they're kind of discussing whether or not this is a good thing. You're finding out how much of a true believer either of them are.
I love it because it's like this deep discussion about objectivist political theory set against literal mutant people climbing along trains and threatening people with their hooks.
Yeah, if you can listen to this, if you read the discussion they're having, these political discussions that they're having, just try very hard to remember to imagine screaming innocent people in a tram and two horrifying drug-addled monsters with hooks crawling along the outside of the tram while they're having this civil discussion about politics. Debate me, coward. And it's got a great line in there, and I've referenced this before. Something a friend of mine said. Bill's talking about the poor, and how maybe they're trying to figure out whether what's the end game here. Why is he doing the charities? And Greavy says maybe his own little army of the poor. And Bill says he'll have no shortage of poor to draw on. Artemis Sweets and Popper's Drop are stuffed with blokes out of work, and if they work, they can still feel crowded and underpaid. Not everyone can start their own business, and if they do, who will clean the toilets?
Yeah.
Which is it's such a simple thing to say.
It's so simple.
But in a nutshell, it tells you what the issue with these grandiose plans are. It's like, because that's the alluring thing with objectivism and Ayn Rand and everything like that, especially if you're, as I've said before, a young man, especially who happens to quietly or not so quietly believe a little too much in their own greatness with a capital G.
Yeah.
And so these fun phrases like is a man not entitled to the sweat of his own brow? It's very intoxicating. Who could say no to that? Who could say no to that?
Who could say no to that? Except when the sweat of their own brow is not, they're not getting anything for the sweat of their own brow.
No.
Like you're like, yeah, they're entitled only to the sweat of their own brow, according to Andrew Ryan.
Right.
Which
not
they can't buy food with.
Right. Not everyone can be great, and not everyone should be great in those terms, by the way. I don't go in for the idea of great men with a capital J.
Yeah. It's like that the idea exists. I think when you talk about great men, there are people who are exceptional at particular things.
Right.
But I think the great man is like a fallacy that leads to the Elon Musk bootlickers,
Yes. The
belief that Elon Musk is a great man, and he's not a great man. He's right place, right time.
Well, he
had money
specifically, yeah.
Specifically, PayPal to Tesla to and he went from $50 billion to $330 billion over the course of the pandemic. The man is on track to be the first trillionaire ever.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
It is. It's foul. And on an even more simplistic note, the notion that he is somehow more valuable or more deserving of happiness and quote unquote the sweat of his own brow than the man who cleans his toilets is wrong. It is incorrect.
It's so wrong. It's laughable.
Yes.
He is $330 billion. To put that into perspective, you could get paid like $1 million every year of your life.
Yeah.
You will still not get to $1 billion.
No. No, you could have the lifespan of a Tolkien elf and never make that much money.
There are so many absurd ways I've read of like to put $1 billion into a sense of scale. One, this man has $330 billion, and it's bullshit. Like people in this book. And this book does a good job shining the light on them.
Yeah.
And other works of art have done a good job shining the light on them that believe in this fallacy of quote unquote great men that just rake in profit, and it's theirs because they're at the top.
Yeah.
And as we have arranged everything in our society to funnel that upwards and believe, yes, they are at the top.
Mm-hmm. They deserve to be there.
They deserve it.
Yeah,
and
they've earned it.
It is it's really gross, and
we're a nation with Stockholm syndrome. It's really what it comes down to.
We are a nation with stockholder syndrome.
Oh shit! God damn, are we good? Oh,
got him.
You know who are. I don't think we need to talk too much about great men because I think I'm looking at two of them. Oh shit! Good God.
What do you think, Velma?
This moment,
Velma agrees.
Velma does. Yeah, she would. Saucy little sweater wearing minx.
So does Baby Yoda.
I think it's kind of funny. It looks like Baby Yoda's being censored out. And when it's just this green wobbly thing, you're like, oh, what is that? So and while these two men are having this discussion, a plasmid riddled addict speaks for many people in the audience and threatens them by using her powers to fire a wrench at Bill.
Yep.
And threatens them. She's tell them to go back where they came from and all that.
They're Ryan's little puppets.
Yeah. And finally, fires using the telekinesis ability, fires a screwdriver at Greavy where it buries itself in his chest.
Right into the chest.
Dies, bleeding.
That is a picture wrap on Greavy.
Goodbye, Greavy.
To which Bill says, Jesus, Greavy.
Jesus, Greavy. Which kind of sounds like he's blaming Greavy. It's like, hey,
why didn't you get out of the way of the screwdriver?
I didn't ask for this. Finally brings us back to Ryan's office. Bill is there.
Bill is there. He's
kind of frustrated because Ryan is kind of cutting him out of certain things. He's not allowed in certain areas anymore.
Yeah, he's not. He hasn't been allowed. He doesn't even know. He doesn't even know what Persephone is.
Right.
He hasn't been allowed over there. And he's like, and Bill is like, hey, I'm the dude who makes sure that shit's not imploding.
Right.
How could I not see a place? You know.
Right. And we basically eventually find out that Ryan has not been so keen on Bill over a specific moment because he's been debating Lamb, and he just got sick of it apparently and went ahead and had her jailed.
Yeah.
Under the idea that she planted the bomb that happened in the last episode. But he doesn't want to make a martyr of her, so he isn't prosecuting her or going through any sort of judicial notion. He's just disappeared her. And he thinks that Bill is pretty much responsible for this because Bill convinced him to leave Lamb alone with his marketplace of ideas notions.
Yeah. He blames Bill so hard, and Bill is like,
it's like, real fucked.
Bill's like, you can't just disappear people, though. You gotta due process. And Ryan's like, oh, well, that would just draw people to her cause. She just has to vanish. You know?
Right.
So that's.
We get a little Andrew Stalin here.
A little Andrew Stalin.
And we do find out the details on Persephone, that it's this penal colony, like part penal colony, part mental institution for malcontents.
Yeah. And you know what is interesting is at the beginning of the section of this scene is the way Bill figures out that there is a Persephone is because the way the airflow is coming through the pipes. He's like, there is something. The air is going somewhere that I don't know where it goes. Like,
that is so funny. I forgot about that.
Like he like whips out his like engineering math smarts that be like, there's a drop in pressure because there's another part of Rapture that I don't know about.
Right. And that actually is some fucking genius shit to like think about that kind of detail.
Right.
Of course, right now, Bill is also thinking that eventually, if he doesn't watch his shit, he might end up being in Persephone.
Yeah, he is on thin ice.
Yeah, but he's still insanely optimistic. Like, he still believes that he can fix this.
He believes in the greatness of Andrew Ryan.
Yes,
sort of,
kind of. Andrew Ryan with his help. That's what you run into a lot, when these people, it's almost as if people don't get the lesson of we shouldn't put so much stock in individual people. They don't get that lesson. Instead, they say, they're really great, especially when it's plus me. Especially when I'm Lieutenant Great Man. So that cuts us to Lamb.
Simon Wales and Sophia Lamb have a little meeting at Persephone. They let Simon in, even though in the previous section, Ryan's like, yeah, I think it's Simon Wales, who's like the turncoat.
Right.
They let Simon in to talk to her. And he is full lock, stock, and barrel in on Lamb.
Totally. She is like, Lamb is part Mother Jones and part Mother Teresa. There is obviously the red. This is where it gets weird for me, and I haven't played Bioshock 2. I'm all for equal opportunity on like displaying the horrors of certain ideological notions, but I recognize the idea of Ryan and that fanatic. But Lamb is kind of this weird combination of the red unionist kind of person and a religious fanatic.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really match, especially if you're, no matter who you are, like whether you are communist sympathizing or if you're extreme right and you hate the commies, part of the reason you hate the commies is because apparently they want to kill God.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird combination.
It is a weird combination. And it's like, you know what it is I feel like they had Bioshock 1, where you have antagonists like Andrew Ryan who are pro, the objectivism and no gods, only men and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, what's the mirror of that? And that's like communal communism, but belief in a greater power.
A thing also that exists, but is that exists, but on small scales. You're talking about hippie communes now,
right? Yeah,
you're not talking about anything that's ever been done on a large scale.
Other thing is, and I might
then again, I guess full objectivism has never been done on a full scale, but
right.
Close.
My thought process is it feels a little both sidesy.
It very much does. Yes.
It's like they didn't want to go too hard into critiquing the objectivism, libertarian right type stuff.
Yeah.
Without positing, but the communists are also just as bad, and we are kind of developing that with Lamb.
Right. And there's room for criticism on anything.
Yeah, you can.
But this feels, you're right. This is it's on a level that like is so extreme that it's like this doesn't really fit. This isn't really a thing.
Yeah,
it doesn't really.
It doesn't fit, and that was I think that was my issue as I started getting into Bioshock 2. It was like, okay, it feels a little weird because they're backing off really hard against the. Like, it feels like there was a really strong core message of the first one. And then the second one, it's like, oh, but we're backing off really hard from that.
Yeah, it feels like they didn't want to be accused of taking either side.
Sure.
Which I think the quality of one game over the other kind of shows you what side they were on. But
and I'll say this, Bioshock 2 combat is better. Like it's a little bit tighter and it feels a little bit more modern compared to the first one. But in terms of writing, I think which is where, Bioshock buttered its bread. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So we're left with Lamb essentially like it's a weird little benediction kind of moment.
Yeah, he's like Simon becomes like John the Baptist.
Yeah.
In this instance, you know?
She blesses him for all intents and purposes. She lets him know that she thinks that she has gotten permission to be able to do therapy for the prisoners, and in doing that, she'll be able to start an uprising.
Yep.
Because all the people who are going to be there. This is a good point. This is something that anybody who studied Russian history, for example, knows anything about the gulags and those kind of political jails, you wonder, is like, why did you put all these people together? Like,
Yeah.
all they have time for is lifting weights and exchanging notes. Like,
Right.
That's kind of a stupid
it doesn't make
thing.
sense. Yeah.
So she's planning on some sort of uprising at that point.
Right.
And that brings us to chapter 13, 1956. We finally
Rapture,
move forward a year.
We move forward a year. We were in 55 for a long time. For a book that went from like 47 to 54 pretty quickly. We were in 55 for quite a spell there. And now we're at the Rapture detention, which is not Persephone. Is this a different place?
They've mentioned the detention before. It's
okay,
just
detention
a regular ass jail.
Detention is regular crimes,
right?
Like murdering people, you go to detention.
Yeah, the Persephone is more of the political
prison. Got it. All right. Well,
so
it's
we've
a Sullivan
got,
chapter.
Yeah, Sully. He they've been hearing these stories of a homicidal splicer, who's been using new black market plasmids that might be the most dangerous plasmids of all. They can teleport using them.
The Houdinis. Yeah.
So we get our first impression of one of these guys basically immediately. They've got, I forget the story. The guy like basically was found. He had cut some woman's head off.
Clean off.
Yeah.
Her head cut off her body. You get me? Sliced off just under the chin, slick as a whistle, brunette. Might have been a pretty woman. I think maybe I saw this chippy dancing over at the strip joint in Fort Frolic. Well, this splicer, he's kind of squeezing her head to his chest. He looked like a kid hugging a baby doll. And he was sawing logs, this guy, snoring. Pat Cavendish gets there and gets him cuffed, tries to wake him up, but the guy's too sacked out, so Patrick gets some help. Brings the son of a bitch up here, puts him in a cell, 17 over there. We got the broad's head in a freezer, in case you want to ID her, which is like, Law and Order.
Yeah. It's total Law and Order talk. That's exactly what it was.
It is the opening pre-credits Law and Order scene.
I am convinced that before every Sullivan chapter, it should be opened with Jung Jung.
Jung Jung.
Yeah. So they've got
in the Rapture criminal justice system.
SVU Rapture. But they got the guy. He just killed the woman and passed out. And they've got him. They got him in a cell, and they're discussing this. And then suddenly, the guy starts teleporting around them, just mocking them and making fun of them.
He's not doing anything, but just like teleporting around.
No, and they can't get him. And it's actually a really great action scene. They're just these guys who are armed to the teeth, who are basically powerless. And one of them actually shoots one of the other guards.
There's a ricochet,
accident.
and Harker, one of the constables, gets shot by.
Right, like they are just powerless to stop this guy. But eventually, between one guy with a shotgun, another guy with a Thompson gun, they manage to take him out. But not until like pure chaos has ensued. And this is just one guy on these plasmids. So, people are really fucked at this point. Yeah.
And so, Harker's down. He's bleeding out. Basically, they end up getting him.
Mm-hmm.
I think is a shotgun blast.
It was like he got riddled. He got riddled with shotgun and the Tommy gun.
Karlowski had clipped him good with the shotgun.
Yeah.
And Summer, as part of the Tommy gun burst, ricocheted down the corridor. Maybe the steel walls hadn't been a good idea. Because the bullets are just bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, it's just everything goes to shit.
Yeah,
in no time.
And
with a guy who was completely unarmed.
And Karlowski says, "This is a whole new, how you say it, from baseball. And Sullivan nods. A whole new ball game.
It's kind of
Chung chung.
I mean, that's like from beginning to end. That is a very Law and Order kind of set of dialogue.
In the Rapture criminal justice system, there is one branch, order.
That's all.
These are their stories.
That's it.
Do, 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 do.
Oh, Kevin, do you know what's been missing from my life in the past episode or two?
Some Dick Wolf.
Well, in a manner of speaking, yes.
Oh, okay.
Another super gay musical with Sander Cohen.
Oh, yeah. We haven't had one of those in a while, have we?
We haven't.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we're about to go to one.
Thankfully, we are about to go to one, and is this the one that's a co-production with Steinman?
Yes, yeah. Holy
Because the
shit.
plastic surgeon clearly has some tendencies to make art.
It is a super gay musical, clearly dedicated to Slanesh. It is Fontaine. He's going to the show because you get the impression there really isn't a whole lot of entertainment down there. Like, because they're all about making their own everything, which I respect on a certain level. But they've only got the one dude. And so Fontaine, who has no interest in Sander Cohen, doesn't like his shows, has never liked his shows, but it's something to do. And
it's
so
the only thing to do, so he's there.
Yeah. So he goes to see the show, and it's wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. He uses the opportunity of the show happening on stage to basically flirt with Diane McClintock.
Right.
Who is Andrew Ryan's number one gal.
His number one gal.
And Diane basically is like, yeah, I read Dick when he insinuates that she's dumb or something like that. She's like, I'm reading.
He negs her a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. He's doing the Dennis.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, really? Yeah. And he effectively flirts with her. Basically, tells her he's like, well, if Ryan never shows up, she's waiting on him. If he never shows up, I'd love to be your arm candy for the evening, if you will. And then Ryan does show up, but it's after the play.
It's after the play is done. Yeah, and the play actually gave Fontaine an idea. Yeah, he got an idea from this little play that Dr. Steinman and Sander Cohen put on, and it's. It goes, Rapture is the hope of the world, it declared, over a picture of Andrew Ryan holding the world on his shoulder. Andrew Ryan as Atlas?
Yeah.
Looking to see that no one was watching, Frank Fontaine tore the poster down.
Now that is foreshadowing.
Hey there, Frankie, foreshadowing.
Exactly. So we get his interest in that. What is he talking about? Well, we're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out soon enough.
Yeah. After that, we get a real quick section where it's Bill recording his thoughts on Rapture and its downfall, like basically, and also thinking to himself, it might be the dumbest thing in the world that I am making physical evidence of the fact that I don't 100% believe in Ryan's vision. That might be an issue.
It might be an issue at some point.
Might be. So, but that cuts to a special meeting of the council. Because
Rapture's there's been
council.
Some murders
going on.
And here's the thing: is that it doesn't become an emergency meeting for murders until it's in the upper atrium, which is where there are the rich folk.
Yeah, they don't care about the murders anywhere else, but they happen to they've started to bleed, no pun intended, into where the rich folk,
where the money is.
Yeah.
So there's only 6 people had shown up this time. They were gathered around the oval conference table in their ornate, gold-trimmed little room near the top of the highest air scraper in Rapture. Anna, Bill, Sullivan, Anton Kincaid, Ryan, Rizzo, and Greavy Greavy normally would have been there, except he got very killed by a screwdriver.
He was he's suffering from a slight case of murder. Yeah, he's out to lunch. So they also have some. So they're discussing these plasmids, and Ryan's great solution is that he's gonna get into the plasmid business. He says
he's gonna make better plasmids.
Exactly. Yeah, the solution is simple. Ryan Enterprises now in the plasmid business. A better product will draw people in, and they'll buy one that doesn't affect their minds. He glanced at Bill, thinking he looked weary and troubled. What do you think, Bill? And Bill says, seriously? It's kind of amazing. Like, really? Is that the plan?
That's your plan?
His plan is, instead of banning something or outlawing something which is not allowed, unequivocally not allowed,
he is not going to ban it because that's a law, and we can't have laws. You've just got to make
better stuff, higher quality stuff, and people will buy that instead. And that's why McDonald's has been out of business for about 50, 60 years.
Sure.
Because people, when better quality is offered to them, they will always go with better quality.
They pass by McDonald's and they pull into Ruth's Chris.
That's right. Every day at lunch.
Every day at lunch.
Every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just better.
And it's funny is Bill, because, you know, the Darwinism is often brought up, you know?
Yeah.
And Bill is like, because Kincaid is talking about how, like, oh, well, clearly these sea slugs are just awakening like a mutation that happened in humanity's past. It's not like it's giving them humanity new abilities. And Bill responds, it's a bit dodgy of an omen that, isn't it, Kincaid? I mean, if these mutations existed in the past and they didn't work out then, might not work out for Rapture then. And then Kincaid's like, well, there's something to that. You're like, they don't exist anymore because they kind of Darwined out. Like,
right. It's like they're not good. Like, I'm a plumber. How am I the first fucking person to think of this? My God.
But they kind of just breeze past it, and Kincaid's like,
they move on fast because there's money to be made.
The next line is, but Ryan's right.
Mm-hmm. And the next thing that they need to do is they start planning out a raid on Fontaine. They basically believe they have enough evidence to suggest that Fontaine is indeed the one who is smuggling everything, the forbidden Bibles, the products, the services, all that good shit, that they believe they have enough evidence to prove that it is Fontaine doing this.
Yep.
So we end that section.
And also that Fontaine and Suchong are using pheromones potentially to control the splicers.
Yes, they do, which is interesting. An interesting theory.
The next section is probably the most. I don't know. I guess.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of what movie I'm thinking this kind of reminds me of. It is the most drug-addled section of the book.
This is to me what your mom. This is basically like a chapter or a chapter section of the book that illustrates everything that your mom assumed would happen to you if you ever took hallucinogenic drugs.
Yes.
It makes me think a little bit of the origin story of what's his name? He was in Hannibal Lecter's friend, the rich kid that he got him really, really high and talked him into chopping his face off.
Yeah. It's like Verger or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It made me think of that. This scene is not for the squeamish. It starts backstage after the Sander Cohen musical, and
Mason Verger.
Mason Verger, thank you. That is it. It. Yeah. We start with Sander Cohen and one of his little boy toys.
Yep.
And they're gonna do some Adam, and it's the first time that the boy toy in question has ever done Adam. but they've basically done every other drug known to man, so he's not thrilled about the notion. He's also kind of nervous, though, because Sander, as he says, always took everything to crazy extremes.
Yeah.
After that last little drunken trip into Arcadia, dancing naked with the Saturnines, forcing a teenage boy to have sex with an octopus, they were all lucky to not be in the Rapture detention cells. They'd gotten out one step ahead of the constables. So, you know, as we talked about before, it's problematic that Sander Cohen is one of our only queer-coded characters, and but he's more than just queer. This is not being queer. This is a level of libertine extremism.
Yeah.
As I said, he's clearly a cultist to Slaanesh.
He is like Dionysus is like, bro.
Yeah. Like, we need you to take a step back. But it also does lead to our first ever first-person view of what it's like to take Adam.
Yeah, because basically the guy disassociates.
Yes.
He thinks that he's in a movie.
He thinks he's in it, but he also thinks he's watching it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird chapter of like disassociated violence where Sander Cohen Sander Cohen has this triptych of victims, and he tortures all of them to death, basically.
Yeah.
And the guy is like freezing them, but he's not. He thinks he's watching himself freeze them and that it's a movie, but he's actually doing it. And it's just like, it is really grotesque what Sander does to each person.
Right.
And then he freezes them and takes a photo of them at like their moment of death.
Right. And it's only at the very end that this guy thinks that he realizes that they're people who are dying, that this isn't a movie. It's a really, really grotesque scene. It's very effective, very well written. A really, really, honestly, a real highlight of the chapter. Really horrific.
It's so horrific, and it's a tough read, honestly.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah.
The last line, basically, Martin found he was drawn to Nod, that his hands went easily to him. He was a very pretty young man after all. Cohen took out an elegant little straight razor, and it just kind of like trails off, and that's the end of the scene.
Yeah.
It's basically like, you don't need to know any more of what's going. It's like, and it continues.
Yeah, I think we all know what's happening next. Yeah, it's awful, but restrained at times.
It is the most. It is basically, I would say, it's like a torture porn scene.
Very much so. Sure.
It's kind of in the genre of like Hostel or something like that, where it's like these people are just being straight up tortured by Sander and Martin.
Yeah.
And Martin is just this boy toy kind of guy who, he's a himbo that was just there for some fun and is now complicit in torturing and murdering three people that at some point displeased Sander in some minute way. That's the thing.
And they
that's
make
how
it clear
these
aren't random victims he's picked up. These are like, one of them is an assistant of Sander's, and they're all people who have displeased him.
Yeah.
So it's like he is meting out punishment as if he were God.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not just random violence; it's vengeance in his eyes.
Yeah.
And speaking of well-adjusted individuals,
speaking of well-adjusted people, J.S. Steinman.
We get back to Steinman.
He's experimenting on somebody.
Yes.
That person is dead now, but was possibly alive. Was possibly alive when he started. I think they were alive when he started.
It says someone's ringing his doorbell, and it says, "Damn them! Why won't they leave genius to be genius?" Steinman muttered, hanging the detached face, complete with her nose and eyebrows, over the lamp beside the operating table. And they let you know this. He's basically been paying for splicers that he can experiment on.
This guy is Ed Gein, you know,
very much so,
very much Ed Gein. Even though Ed Gein only maybe killed like 2 people, like in terms of the experimentation with slicing things up, that's but very.
It definitely brings that to mind. Where Sander Cohen, we've got kind of more of a Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer kind of thing.
Yeah.
Definitely Jeffrey Dahmer, rather.
Right.
So he, this is actually kind of a funny scene.
Because Fontaine is like there, and he's like, I want plastic surgery, but none of your fucked up kinds.
Right. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows. Well, first off, Steinman goes out there, and it's Fontaine and his posse, and Steinman's like, what? And they're all staring at him because he's covered in blood. He's completely, because he is losing it. He is like, he does not know what's right and wrong anymore. And he kind of like goes, oh, right.
Cadavers.
I'm working on something. And they're like, sure.
Yeah.
And then Fontaine tells him he wants plastic surgery. Basically, he wants to switch faces with one of his crew. Face off. He wants to reenact that. And dance around in a priest's costume and grab some chorus girl's butt.
Yeah.
That's all I remember about that movie. But he makes a point of being like, I know what you fucking do. I'll give you all the Adam you want, but you're getting it afterwards because I don't want you to go fucking rogue on me when you're high.
You're gonna be sober when you do my surgery.
Right. It's just so funny. It's like Fontaine is so. He wants something and he's going to get it, goddammit. But he's like, he's still willing to let this guy cut him up. Like, I'd be like, well, I guess I better come up with a better plan.
Yeah.
If this is my only plastic surgeon. But so he tells him that's the plan, and Steinman agrees. He says, yeah, sure, we got a deal.
Yeah. And if you mention it to anybody, you'll find yourself going headfirst out in airlock without a diving suit.
Right. Right.
That's the last thing Fontaine says to him.
Right. And we know Fontaine will do it.
He will do it. Like, he is going to follow up. It's not an idle threat.
No.
Fontaine only gives threats.
No, he gives real threats no matter what. And that brings us to chapter 14.
Say what you will about Frank Fontaine, but at least it's an ethos.
Right. Fontainism. So we are now with Bill Sullivan and a whole team of Ryan's thugs, and they are getting armed, and they are about to go raid Fontaine's smugglers.
This is the arm up scene. You know, you know, the guns are going
click.
And the right.
You get the close ups of all the wood grain on the stock from the rifle, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're getting all set up, and they're heading on down to the wharf area where fucking Fontaine's got a submarine, which I don't know why I was surprised. Of course, if they've got a city under the sea.
Sure, there's going to be submarines.
You got to have a submarine. But I was still kind of like, fucking submarine, cool. Like,
rock on.
I was so digging it. Yeah, and just as they are making their way down there, they see Fontaine's man, Reggie, down there.
Yep.
And just as they're about to make their way down to the docks to throw down the law, so to speak, the submarine just lurches out of there and basically kills a ton of people.
Yeah.
Kicking up all this ocean and drowning all of these guys
people,
on the decks. Yeah.
Yeah. And
like basically the idea is they knew they were coming.
Yeah. They knew they were coming. Somebody signals the submarine and said there's like a guy that they're trying to fish out of the water, Grogan, who they hadn't mentioned before, but R.I.P. Grogan. Rip Grogan.
Poor Grogan.
Poor Grogan. He's dead.
R.I.P. Josh Grogan.
Josh Grogan. And Andrew Ryan is not happy.
Oh, he is pissed. And
because Frank Fontaine is there to see him.
Yeah, we don't have to wait very long. It's kind of fucking great. The very next section, Ryan is just fuming, and then Fontaine just shows up with his group, and they start negotiate. They're starting to kind of negotiate smuggling plasmids, all that shit. Fontaine's playing his cards very close to his vest. Ryan seems kind of frustrated because he's not I think Ryan thinks that like they're gonna play this game of gentlemen businessmen or something, and that's just not Fontaine's thing.
No, he's going to undercut him any way possible.
Absolutely.
Even from like Karlowski is there acting as Ryan's bodyguard, but then like Fontaine rolls in with 3 people. Like, there's no winning in this scene.
Right. There's no winning. And so basically, Fontaine lays it out for him, and he's like, look, basically, you leave us the fuck alone, and we'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a great section that says, Fontaine's smile went crooked on his face. Because Ryan mentions teleport to him. And he says, I'm finding teleport problematic too. People who use it get extra crazy. They're giving me problems. I've got my own security issues. Security issues? You act as if you have your own little fiefdom here in Rapture. If I do, you gave it to me, Ryan, by deceiving people about what they'd find in your pretty undersea utopia, by not providing for them once they got here. And he has a point.
Yeah.
And also, it's you kind of want to shout at Ryan. It's like, yeah, he does have a fiefdom. Isn't that the idea?
Isn't that's the goal of Rapture?
That's the goal. I thought the whole goal was to let great men be great men, and therein lies the problem. Most people who think of this stuff, when they think of great men, they're not thinking about they're not really thinking let the cream rise to the top. They're saying me. I'm going to win.
I am the great man. I can rise to the top. And Andrew Ryan just thinks he is just going to coast to the top and things will be great. And Frank Fontaine is like, but fuck you.
And he's outplaying him in every possible way.
Fontaine, basically the summary of this scene is Fontaine marches into his office with a show of strength.
Yep.
He's got 3 guys with him. He's got 6 more out in the hallway. And he says to Ryan, if you back the fuck off, the only concession you'll get is that I stop distributing teleport.
Right.
And that's it. Everything else continues as is.
Yeah, that's the only concession I'm offering you. Mostly because I don't like teleport either.
Yep.
So it's just a coincidence, really. It's just, and you get the distinct impression that he'd be like, you know what? If I knew that it would fuck up your little empire, I would risk keeping it out there.
Yeah.
Even if it would fuck things up for me a little bit. If I knew it would crush you, I'd take that hit. So it is a really nasty scene. You get when you have 2 big bads.
Yep.
Who do you pull for?
Who do you pull for? I don't know.
The answer is the one that actually seems to stick to his ethos, I think.
Yeah. Fontaine is very clear cut in what he believes.
Oh, absolutely. That brings us to a quick section where we're back in detention and a guard has been killed with a message left behind, basically a warning.
The blood of the Lamb will cleanse us all. Her time will come, love to all.
Yeah. So
the Lamb stuff is starting to spread about.
Getting a bit of an uprising there. And
he goes,
finally,
Lamb. Well, the confusing part was Lamb, Sullivan muttered. Ryan could jail the woman, but she was still a thorn in his side. But isn't she already jailed in Persephone?
Well, that's what I think he means. Like he can jail her, but she's still a pain in the ass.
Oh, gotcha.
I think that's what he means.
Gotcha. It's like it didn't matter that she's in jail. She's still doing her thing. She
planted the seed in a lot of people's heads, including a lot of people who are still up there who are getting even more pissed off by the day. And so they're gonna do a lot of fucked up shit in her name, and that's the way it rolls.
That's the way it rolls. Meanwhile, Andrew Ryan is having some sexy time with his favorite with Jasmine, his favorite stripper.
His favorite stripper. Good for him.
Good for him.
He's had a long day.
He's had a long day. I'm sure she's had a long day. And basically, he is just grumbling over Atlas. There is another organizer out there other than Lamb going by the name of Atlas. I wonder who that is.
I wonder. And we're hearing we're hearing the catchphrase, if you will, the rumblings of who is Atlas, and which of course is a direct parallel to who is John Galt from Atlas Shrugged. So we have a usurper on the horizon here, And there's a weird little moment of Jasmine wanting to tell Ryan something. And he like has to pull it out of her. And finally, when she says she wants him to do something about the sea slugs. They're like all across her window.
Snail things.
Yeah. She's got a window, and the divers in their suits, she says they scare her. They just look like a bunch of big daddies out there.
The scary old big daddies, I call them.
Yeah.
There's something else you wanted to tell me. She closed her eyes, pursed her lips, shook her head. He could see she had made up her mind not to tell him. And it's clearly that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Because there's a line of, he turned to see Jasmine looking rather more full-figured than usual in a pink negligee.
Right. Yeah, that's a dead giveaway right there.
And she's also like, I gotta tell you something. And then she's like, the slugs on my window, I don't like them.
Yeah. So
and I don't like the guys that clean them.
Right.
I don't have anything else to say.
I literally have nothing else to say. Bye.
Bye.
So we've got some growth on the horizon. Anyway, that ends part 2.
And so we got like maybe a fifth of the book left.
Yeah. I think we've got one more episode should be
one more episode should wrap it up, because I think part 3 is a shorten.
Sure. Yeah. Part 3 is about 100 pages, a little over 100 pages.
Yeah. I have a feeling things are going to come to a head. Yeah. So
we got some interesting stuff ahead of us. That's for damn sure.
We do have some interesting stuff ahead of us.
So
how you feeling? How you feeling?
I like it still.
I still really like it. I think it has some glaring issues that are probably more related to the fact that it had to be based on Bioshock itself.
Yeah.
Like the depiction of Sander Cohen, some of the way it does the winks and the nods, but overall I still really like it.
Yeah, same. I think those are my main issues. And the references to the game, it gets there. You get a little stumbly at certain points, a little sloppy.
You know what I do? I really like. So, and I hate to keep comparing it to like Dead Space Martyr, but we just read it and it's still very fresh in my mind. That so when we get the twins, the little sisters that are like, that's the whole setup. I feel like in Dead Space Martyr, the way that scene would have played out is we would have had one of the characters recapping that, like kind of awkwardly and shortly, like, oh yeah, these two splicers killed each other. Like two people got killed, and these are their kids.
They left behind a couple of twins. It was terrible.
Behind a couple of twins. This is terrible. But instead, we get it from like, oh, let's do it right in the moment.
Right.
Let's actually show the heartbreak.
It's so much more effective, and it sticks with you.
It sticks with you because it's a book and you have time to do that. And for as long as Dead Space Martyr was, in terms of number of pages, it's amazing how much time it wasted.
It's true. There is very little time wasted here. There is no padding. There has not been a section in the book that felt padded to me.
Right.
It's all, as we talked about last episode, we're either pushing the plot forward, or we are establishing the world, or we are establishing character development, or a piece of the world that is going to mean something in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't feel padded. It doesn't feel that we certainly haven't had 19 different scenes where people explain the same shit that happened over and over again. Yeah. So I think there's, and I think it's right to compare this to Dead Space Martyr because of if only because they're not similar stories, but there's a similar feel to them. The science fiction,
it's that sci-fi horror, and I would say
the world going to hell kind of thing. The world
going to hell, apocalyptic ish, portents of bad futures, that kind of stuff. They all have, I mean, obviously the balance of those genres is different between the two of them. If you were like putting them on sliders, I would say it's like This one's 70% to 30%, whatever. They still have some elements. They're still, the ingredients are the same, are similar. It's like a burrito versus a taco, you know?
Right. There's a lot of similarities, but one's, people are going to prefer one over the other.
Yeah, exactly.
This is definitely the writing is so solid. This guy is he was absolutely the right person to do the job here.
I agree.
Great writer.
I agree.
John Shirley, good stuff.
So that'll do it for today's episode. If you enjoy what we do, please rate us 5 stars on Apple and follow us on Spotify or whatever podcast catcher that you prefer to use. It really helps when you follow us. It really helps when you share our stuff. Tell a friend about us. And please follow us on Twitter at PixelLit Pod. You can check out our website at pixelitpod.com. And we have Instagram, PixelLit Pod. It's all good. Go check it out. Fun times. And that'll about do it. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.